I never thought the day I finally achieved my dream would be the day my family shattered my heart into pieces. But life has a way of humbling you, even in your proudest moments. This is the story of how I learned to stand up for myself, set boundaries, and ultimately heal the broken relationships in my family. My name is Emily Carter, and at 30 years old, I thought I had finally reached a point in my life where my family would see me, really see me. Not just as the reliable one, the one who always had her life together, but as someone who deserved to be celebrated. But as I would soon learn, old habits die hard, especially in families like mine. It all started on a crisp autumn evening. I had invited my family to dinner at the Willow, a cozy upscale restaurant downtown, to celebrate my promotion to senior creative director at one of the most prestigious advertising agencies in the city. After years of late nights, impossible deadlines, and proving myself over and over again, I had finally made it. The promotion came with a significant salary bump, a corner office with a stunning view of the city skyline, and, most importantly, the recognition I had been craving for years. I had spent weeks planning this dinner. I reserved a private dining room, ordered a custom cake, and even prepared a little speech to share with my parents and sister. I wanted this moment to be perfect. I wanted them to be proud of me, to finally acknowledge that all my hard work had paid off. The evening started well enough. My parents arrived on time, my father in his usual tweed jacket, and my mother wearing the scarf I had gifted her last Christmas. My younger sister, Lily, arrived 25 minutes late, as usual. She breezed into the room, her long auburn hair cascading over her shoulders, and flashed her signature smile. "Sorry, traffic was a nightmare," she said, though we all lived within 20 minutes of the restaurant. She glanced around the room, her eyes widening. "Wow. This place is fancy. Are you sure you can afford it?" She laughed, but the jab was clear. I chose to ignore it. Tonight was about celebration, not confrontation. After we ordered our meals, I tapped my glass gently with my fork to get everyone's attention. "I actually invited you all here tonight because I have some exciting news to share," I began, my voice trembling slightly with excitement. I reached into my bag and pulled out the press release announcing my promotion. I've been promoted to senior creative director. The announcement goes public tomorrow, but I wanted you all to be the first to know. My father's eyebrows raised slightly, the closest he ever came to showing surprise, and my mother reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "That's wonderful, dear," she said, her voice warm but distracted. Before I could continue, Lily cleared her throat loudly. "Actually, I have an announcement too," she said, her voice rising above mine. "I've decided to drop out of law school." The room fell silent. My father's focus snapped to Lily, his expression shifting from mild interest to intense concern. My mother withdrew her hand from mine and turned to face my sister.
"What?"
"Why?" she asked, her voice quivering. "You're only a semester away from graduating." Lily shrugged, her tone casual, as if she were discussing the weather. "I'm just not feeling it anymore. Law school is so restrictive. I need to find myself, you know? I've been thinking about traveling through Asia for a while, maybe doing some freelance photography. A few people have told me I have a real eye for it." I sat there, the press release still in my hand, as my parents peppered Lily with questions. No one asked anything more about my promotion. No one raised a glass to toast my achievement. Instead, my father began discussing how Lily could find her passion, while my mother fretted about her future. "I'll need some money to get started," Lily said casually, as though she were asking to borrow $10 instead of what would undoubtedly be thousands. "Just until I get established." My father nodded thoughtfully. "We'll figure something out. Your happiness is what matters most." I placed the press release back in my bag, unread and unacknowledged. The waiter brought our food, and I ate mechanically, barely tasting the dish I had been looking forward to all week. Lily dominated the conversation, spinning elaborate plans for her Asian adventure while my parents offered suggestions and support. When the check came, I paid it without comment. No one seemed to notice. As we walked to the parking lot, my mother finally remembered my news. "Oh, Emily, congratulations again on your promotion. Was it marketing director?" Senior Creative Director. I corrected quietly. Right, she said, already turning back to Lily, who was describing the hostel she wanted to stay at in Bangkok. I drove home alone that night, a familiar emptiness expanding in my chest. It wasn't the first time Lily had stolen my moment, and it wouldn't be the last. But something felt different this time. Perhaps it was the magnitude of what had been dismissed, or perhaps it was simply that I had finally reached my limit. When I unlocked the door to my apartment, I made a decision. I wouldn't rage or sulk. I wouldn't demand the recognition I deserved. Instead, I would move forward, building a life so full and complete that it didn't depend on my family's validation. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I went to work, accepted congratulations from colleagues who genuinely celebrated my success, and threw myself into my new role. Evenings and weekends that I might have spent with family, I now invested in myself. I took a pottery class I had always been interested in, joined a book club, and strengthened friendships with people who showed up consistently. When my mother called to talk about Lily's latest drama, I listened politely but briefly. When family dinners were scheduled, I attended but set clear time boundaries. I stopped trying to impress them with my accomplishments and simply lived my life on my terms. 3 months into my promotion, I was thriving. My team respected me. Our department's performance had improved significantly, and I had even been featured in a local business magazine as one of the city's rising stars. I had rented a beautiful new apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Most importantly, I had found a peace I hadn't experienced before, a contentment that came from validating myself rather than seeking approval from others. Then, 6 months after the infamous promotion dinner, my doorbell rang on a rainy Sunday afternoon. When I checked through the peephole, I was surprised to see Lily standing there, mascara streaking down her face, her hair disheveled, looking nothing like her usual polished self. I opened the door, and she practically fell inside, sobbing. "Emily, I need your help," she choked out. "Everything's gone wrong." I guided her to my living room sofa and handed her a tissue. "Take a deep breath, Lily. What happened?" Between sobs, she explained that her Asian adventure had been a disaster. The freelance photography opportunities hadn't materialized. She had burned through the money our parents had given her and maxed out multiple credit cards. Now, she was being evicted from her apartment and had to buy an emergency flight home with a credit card that was already over its limit. "Mom and Dad can't help anymore," she said, her voice small. "They already remortgaged the house to help me earlier, and they can't do more right now. I have nowhere to go, Emily. I need a place to stay, just until I figure things out. I promise I'll pay you back." As I looked at my sister, truly looked at her, I saw beyond the drama and the tears to the pattern that had defined our relationship for decades. She took, I gave. She demanded, I accommodated. She centered herself, I moved to the periphery. For a moment, I thought about all the times she had dismissed my achievements, all the moments she had stolen that should have been mine, all the ways our parents had enabled her at my expense. I could have said no. I could have listed all the reasons she didn't deserve my help. I could have turned her away and felt justified in doing so. Instead, I smiled and said, "I'll help you, Lily. But things will be different this time." Her eyes widened with hope. "You will?" "Oh, thank you, I knew I could count on you." "On one condition," I continued, my voice firm but kind. "You follow my rules while you're here. This isn't going to be like all the other times." The relief on Lily's face faltered slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'll help you get back on your feet, but I'm not enabling the behaviors that got you here in the first place." That evening, I laid out my terms. She could stay in my guest room for 3 months. I'd help her find a job, but she would contribute to household expenses. No loans, but I would connect her with a financial advisor. And most importantly, we would attend family therapy together. "Therapy," she looked horrified. "Mom and Dad will never agree to that." "This isn't about Mom and Dad," I said. "This is about you and me." Reluctantly, she agreed. What choice did she have? The first few weeks were challenging. Lily was used to being catered to, not following someone else's rules. She'd leave dishes in the sink, stay out late without texting, and complain about the entry-level jobs I found suitable for her. I can't work at a coffee shop. It's beneath me, she protested after her first interview. Nothing honest is beneath anyone, I replied calmly. Besides, it's temporary. You need income while you figure out your next steps. To my surprise, she took the job. Maybe it was desperation, or maybe something was finally shifting. Our first therapy session was tense. When Dr. Collins asked why we were there, Lily immediately launched into a story about her failed Asian adventure, casting herself as the victim. Actually, I interrupted gently. We're here because I need to establish healthier boundaries with my sister. Dr. Collins nodded. Emily, can you share an example of when boundaries were crossed? I told her about my promotion dinner, about countless birthdays overshadowed by Lily's drama, about parents who prioritized one daughter's whims over another's achievements. Lily sat silent, her face flushing deeper with each example. That's not fair, she finally burst out. You're making me sound terrible. I'm not judging you, I said quietly. I'm describing a pattern that's hurt me deeply. By the end of the session, something had shifted. On the drive home, Lily stared out the window, uncharacteristically quiet. Did you really feel that way all those times? She asked eventually. Yes, I said simply. I never thought about it like that, she paused. I've been pretty self-centered, haven't I? It was the first genuine self-reflection I'd ever heard from her. Over the following weeks, small changes became noticeable. Lily started cleaning up after herself. She took initiative in applying for jobs and eventually found a position as an assistant at a local art gallery that matched her interest in photography. She even opened up during therapy, admitting she'd always felt pressured to be dramatic to get attention. Emily made everything look so easy, she confessed. Good grades, solid career, stable relationships. I couldn't compete with that, so I found other ways to stay in the spotlight. 2 months into our arrangement, our parents invited us to Sunday dinner. I almost declined, but Dr. Collins had encouraged us to practice our new communication patterns in familiar, challenging environments. When we arrived, the dynamic was immediately familiar. Mom fussed over Lily, asking a dozen questions about her gallery job while barely acknowledging my presence. Dad jumped in with advice about how she could advance more quickly. I caught Lily's eye across the table, expecting her to bask in the attention. Instead, she looked uncomfortable. Actually, she said, interrupting our father's monologue, I think Emily has some exciting news about work. Didn't you mention something about landing that big client? The table fell silent. Our parents turned to me with matching expressions of surprise. Yes, I said, recovering quickly. We secured the Thompson account last week. It's the largest client in the company's history. That's wonderful, my mother said, clearly caught off guard by the shift in focus. Emily's been crushing it at work, Lily continued. And she's been helping me get my life together too. I wouldn't have this gallery job without her. Our parents exchanged confused glances, unsure how to navigate this new dynamic. After dinner, as we prepared to leave, my father pulled me aside. Your sister seems different, he said hesitantly. We both are, I replied. In the car, Lily turned to me. Did you see their faces? They didn't know what hit them. I laughed. It'll take more than one dinner to change decades of patterns. Well, I'm ready if you are, she said with unexpected determination. 3 months turned into 4, and Lily didn't mention moving out. Instead, she increased her rent contribution and took over grocery shopping. Our therapy sessions continued, now focused on maintaining our improved relationship while rebuilding healthy connections with our parents. 6 months after she'd arrived crying at my door, we hosted a dinner party at my apartment. As Lily charmed my colleagues and friends with stories about the gallery, I watched her with a mixture of pride and amazement. This confident, considerate woman barely resembled the self-centered sister I'd grown up with. Later, as we cleaned up together, she handed me a small wrapped package. What's this? I asked. Just open it, she urged. Inside was a framed press release, my promotion announcement from a year ago. She'd had it professionally matted and framed. I found it in your desk drawer when I was looking for stamps, she explained. I realized no one ever really celebrated this with you. She hesitated. I'm sorry, Emily. I'm sorry I stole your moment. I felt the weight of years of resentment lift as I hugged my sister, perhaps genuinely, for the first time in our adult lives. Sometimes, the most satisfying endings don't come from rejection or revenge, but from transformation. By helping Lily when she needed it most, but on my terms, I hadn't just changed our relationship. I'd helped her become someone who could finally see beyond herself. When she eventually moved into her own apartment 3 blocks from mine, our weekly sister dinners continued. And when she got promoted at the gallery a year later, I was the first person she called to celebrate. The broken patterns of a lifetime had finally begun to heal.